The more we forget ourselves, the more God remembers us. Whoever has faith in God and a sacrificial spirit does not consider himself. When someone does not cultivate the spirit of sacrifice, he thinks only of himself and wants everybody else to sacrifice themselves for him. But whoever thinks solely of himself is isolated from others as well as from God, a double isolation, in which case he cannot receive divine grace. He becomes a useless person. One can readily see that he who thinks constantly of himself, his difficulties and troubles and so on, will not find even some human assistance when a need arises. Not having divine assistance is one thing, but not having even some human assistance is quite another. Then he will struggle one way or another to find some help. He will torment himself trying to find some help from men, but he will not find such help. On the contrary, someone who does not think of himself but thinks constantly of others in the good sense will be thought of constantly by God, and then others will also think of him. The more one forgets himself, the more God remembers him. Look at some soul in a monastery sacrificing herself, offering herself, and so on. Do you think that this will not be noticed by others? Is it possible for others not to think of this soul offering herself entirely and not thinking of herself? Is it possible for God not to think of her? This is important. Here one can see the blessing of God, how God works. Someone is tested through the trials of life. It is there that you see if he has real love, a true spirit of sacrifice. And when we say that someone has the spirit of sacrifice, we mean that at the time of danger he does not consider himself but thinks of the others. You see that even the popular proverb affirms this: a friend in need is a friend indeed. God forbid, but if bombs were to fall now, it would reveal who is thinking of others and who is thinking of himself. But someone who used to thinking only of himself will at a time of danger also think of himself, and God will not think of him. When even now someone does not think of himself but is thoughtful and considerate of others, he will do the same at a time of danger. It is then that it becomes clear who are truly the people with a sacrificial spirit and who are the selfish ones. If one does not start sacrificing something now, like giving up some desire or selfishness, how will he ever be able to sacrifice his life at a difficult time? If even now he thinks of the labor and tries to avoid working a little harder than the next person, how will he ever attain the state of risking his own life to save another's? If now he thinks only of himself even in small matters, how can he then think of others when his own life is in danger? Then it will be far more difficult. If difficult times come and a selfish person sees a neighbor, for example, sick with fever collapsing in the street, he will leave him there and go away saying, I must go and lie down to rest lest I too become sick. During wartime, your own life is struggling with the life of the other. Bravery is running to save another's life. When there is no spirit of sacrifice, everyone looks to only save himself. And it is often seen that someone who during the war tries to hide is most often found by a hand grenade. He attempts to escape and he becomes a cropper. For this reason, one must not try to escape, especially at the expense of others. I remember an incident during the Albanian War. A soldier had a stone slab to protect his head. In the meantime, he had to move over and he set the slab down. Immediately, the soldier next to him took it, saying, Here is my chance to take it for myself now. At that moment, a mortar fell on him and killed him. He saw the incoming fire and took the slab for himself without thinking of the other soldier who would return. He thought only of himself and justified his action. Since other soldier moved over a little, I can now take his slab for myself. Yes, he left, but it was his protective slab. Another person tried throughout the duration of the war to save himself. He thought of no one but himself. The others helped, but he stayed at home. He sought until the very end, when things became very difficult to avoid a danger. Later, when the British had come, he went to the camp, presented himself to Napoleon's service, and because he also had American citizenship, found an opportunity to leave for America. As soon as he arrived there, he died. His poor wife used to say, "He tried to escape from God. He died, while others who went to war survived."